Seven-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has won countless races throughout his illustrious career, but his greatest victory had nothing to do with checkered flags or podium celebrations. It began with a chance encounter that would change multiple lives forever. Lewis Hamilton parked his sleek black car in his usual spot at the Mercedes Formula One headquarters in Brackley, England. It was barely 6:30 in the morning, much earlier than most people arrived at work. The British racing star liked these quiet moments before the building filled with engineers, mechanics, and team officials. "Going to be a good day," Lewis said to himself, grabbing his bag from the passenger seat. He had a big race coming up at Silverstone, his home track, and wanted to review some data with his engineers. The Mercedes building was massive and modern, with silver walls that gleamed in the early morning sunlight. Lewis used his key card to enter through a side door. Inside, the halls were empty and quiet. His footsteps echoed as he walked past the trophy cases filled with silver cups from past victories. Lewis checked his watch. He had time to grab a coffee before meeting with Toto Wolff, the team boss. As he turned down the hallway toward the cafeteria, he heard something strange. It sounded like crying? He stopped and listened. Yes, someone was definitely crying. The sound was coming from a small supply closet around the corner. Most people would have kept walking, pretending not to hear. After all, Lewis Hamilton was a seven-time world champion with a busy schedule, but something made him pause. Lewis knocked gently on the door. "Hello? Are you okay in there?" The crying stopped immediately. After a few seconds of silence, a man's voice answered, "Yes, sorry, I'm fine. Just cleaning in here." Lewis frowned. The voice didn't sound fine at all. "May I come in?" Another pause. "Mr. Hamilton? Is that you?" "Yes, it's Lewis." The door opened slowly, revealing a man in his late 30s wearing the gray uniform of the Mercedes cleaning staff. His name badge read Miguel Sanchez. His eyes were red, and he quickly wiped his face with his sleeve. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hamilton," Miguel said, looking embarrassed. "I didn't think anyone would be here this early. I'll get out of your way." "You're not in my way," Lewis said kindly. "And please, call me Lewis." Miguel nodded, but kept his eyes down. Lewis noticed the small closet had a chair where Miguel had been sitting. On the floor was a photo of a young girl, maybe 8 years old, with Miguel's same warm brown eyes and bright smile. "Is that your daughter?" Lewis asked, pointing to the photo. Miguel picked up the picture with gentle hands. "Yes, Sophia. She's 8. Lewis saw Miguel's eyes fill with tears again. Instead of walking away, Lewis did something unexpected. He stepped into the small closet and sat down on an overturned bucket. "Miguel, what's wrong? I know we don't know each other, but sometimes talking helps." For a moment, Miguel looked surprised that one of the most famous athletes in the world was sitting in a closet with him. Then his shoulders slumped. "It's Sophia," he said, his voice breaking. "She's sick, very sick." Lewis felt a pang in his heart. "I'm so sorry to hear that. What kind of sick?" "Cancer," Miguel whispered, the word falling like a stone between them. "A rare kind. The doctors are doing their best, but the treatments—" He shook his head. "They cost so much money. I work here in the mornings and at a restaurant at night, but it's still not enough." Lewis nodded, listening carefully. He noticed Miguel's hands were rough and calloused from hard work. "The worst part," Miguel continued, "is that Sophia loves Formula One. She watches every race. You're her hero, you know." A small smile crossed his tired face. "She has posters of you on her wall. She doesn't even know I work here at Mercedes." I never told her because I didn't want her to ask to visit. To be so close, but not able to meet you would break her heart." Louis felt something shift inside him. He thought about his own journey, all the people who had helped him along the way. When his family struggled to support his racing dreams, "Miguel," Louis said, making a decision in that moment that would change many lives, "I'd like to hear more about Sophia, and I think maybe there's something we can do to help." Miguel looked up, confusion and a tiny spark of hope in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Louis smiled. "I'm not sure yet, but I promise you won't face this alone anymore." Outside the closet, the building was beginning to wake up. Soon the halls would fill with people ready for another day of racing business. But in that small supply room, something important had just begun, something much bigger than racing. Louis and Miguel left the supply closet together. Miguel needed to finish his morning cleaning duties, and Louis offered to walk with him. "I have some time before my meeting," Louis said. "If you don't mind talking while you work?" Miguel nodded, pushing his cleaning cart down the hallway. "Sophia was diagnosed 8 months ago," he began. "She had been getting these headaches. At first, the doctor said it was nothing to worry about. Kids get headaches." Louis listened as they moved through the building. Miguel sprayed glass cleaner on the trophy case and wiped it with smooth, practiced motions. But the headaches got worse. She started getting dizzy at school. One day she fell during gym class and couldn't get up. Miguel's hand trembled slightly as he cleaned. That's when they did the scans. They found a tumor. "I'm so sorry," Louis said quietly. "What kind of cancer is it?" "The doctors call it medulloblastoma. It's a brain tumor that mostly affects children." Miguel pronounced the medical term carefully, like he had practiced saying it many times. "It's rare, but they caught it early. That gives her a better chance." They reached the cafeteria, which was still empty. Miguel began wiping down tables while Louis leaned against the counter. "Sophia has already had surgery and radiation. Now she needs special chemotherapy, the kind they use for children." Miguel shook his head. "Even with insurance, the bills keep coming. Hospital stays, medicines, tests. My wife, Maria, had to quit her job to take Sophia to all her treatments." Louis thought about his own childhood in Stevenage. His father, Anthony, had worked multiple jobs to support Louis's racing dreams. He knew what sacrifice looked like. "Where is Sophia now?" Louis asked. "At home today, with her mother. She has good days and bad days. On good days, she goes to school for a few hours." Miguel smiled. "She's very smart. Her teachers send work home, so she doesn't fall behind," Louis nodded. "And she likes Formula One?" Miguel's face brightened. "Oh yes, she never misses a race. We watch together on Sundays. She jumps up and down when you win." He pulled out his phone and showed Louis a photo of Sophia, wearing a Mercedes cap, pointing excitedly at the TV. This was Monaco last month. Louis smiled at the image. The girl had dark, curly hair like her father, though much of it was hidden under the cap. Her smile was huge, despite looking thin and pale. "She knows all the drivers, all the teams," Miguel continued, pride in his voice. "She collects the little toy cars. For her birthday in January, I saved up to buy her a model of your car from last season." Miguel's phone buzzed with a text message. He checked it quickly. "It's Maria. Sophia had a good night. Her blood counts are better today." Louis saw relief wash over Miguel's tired face. Then Miguel glanced at the clock on the wall and his expression changed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hamilton." "Louis, I need to finish my work before the day shift manager arrives." "Of course," Louis said. "But Miguel, I meant what I said. I want to help. Let me think about this today." Miguel hesitated. "You don't have to do anything. I didn't tell you to ask for help." "I know," Louis replied. "But sometimes help finds you when you aren't looking for it." He pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number? I'd like to talk more later." After exchanging numbers, Louis headed to his meeting. His mind was racing faster than any car he'd ever driven. By the time he reached Toto Wolff's office, he had the beginning of a plan. The day passed in a blur of strategy meetings and simulator work. Louis was focused and professional, giving no hint of his morning encounter. But between discussions of tire compounds and aerodynamics, his thoughts kept returning to Miguel and Sofia. That evening, after everyone else had left, Louis searched for information about medulloblastoma on his phone. The medical websites used big words, but he understood enough. The disease was serious. Treatment was hard on children. The costs were enormous. Louis also learned about a new treatment being tested at Boston Children's Hospital in America. Italy showed promise for cases like Sofia's, but wasn't available in England yet. Just before midnight, Louis texted Miguel, "Would it be okay if I visited Sofia sometime? Not as Lewis Hamilton the driver, just as a friend." 3 minutes later, Miguel responded, "She would love that. But are you sure? You must be very busy." Louis typed back, "I'm sure. And Miguel, I've been thinking about the medical bills. I'd like to help with those too." This time, Miguel's reply took longer to arrive. "That is too much. We can't accept that." Louis smiled as he typed his response. "Everyone needs help sometimes, even world champions." He paused, then added, "Especially world champions." He thought about all the people who had helped him on his journey. His father working multiple jobs, Ron Dennis taking a chance on him at McLaren, his team believing in him through tough times. Louis had always promised himself that if he made it big, he would help others the way he had been helped. Now, he had found his chance in an unexpected place. As Louis drifted off to sleep, he knew his life was about to get more complicated. Keeping his visits to Sofia secret from the press would be challenging. His schedule was already packed with commitments, but somehow none of that seemed important, compared to the little girl fighting for her life, who didn't even know her hero was about to enter her world. Louis woke up early the next morning with a clear purpose. Before his scheduled training session, he made 2 important calls. First, he phoned Angela Cullen, his trusted physiotherapist and personal assistant. The New Zealander had been by Louis's side for years, helping manage his health, schedule, and many of the details that came with being a Formula One champion. "Ang, I need your help with something personal," Louis explained. "Something we need to keep private." "Of course," Angela replied. "What's going on?" Louis told her about Miguel and Sofia. Angela listened quietly, only asking a few questions. "I want to visit her, but without cameras or publicity," Louis finished. "Can you help arrange that?" "Leave it to me," Angela said. "I'll clear some time in your schedule and make sure it stays confidential." Louis's second call was to Dr. Amelia Roberts, a pediatric oncologist he had met during a charity visit to Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. After explaining Sofia's situation, he asked for her professional opinion. "Medulloblastoma responds well to treatment in many cases," Dr. Roberts said. "But the standard treatments are tough on children. This new approach they're testing in Boston shows real promise with fewer side effects. How difficult would it be to get Sofia into that program?" Louis asked. "Very difficult," Dr. Roberts admitted. "It's still experimental. There's a waiting list, and the costs are enormous since it's not covered by the NHS." Louis thought for a moment. "If money wasn't an issue, could you help us navigate the medical side of things? Make the right connections? For a child in need?" "Absolutely," Dr. Roberts said. Send me her medical records, with the parents' permission, of course. 2 days later, Lewis arrived at the Children's Hospital in Oxford, where Sophia was having treatments. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a plain black t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. No Mercedes gear, no flashy jewelry. Angela walked beside him carrying a small gift bag. "Remember," Angela said quietly as they entered the building, "you're just Lewis, a friend of Miguel's who works with cars. We don't want to overwhelm her." Lewis nodded. He felt strangely nervous, more nervous than before the start of a grand prise. Miguel was waiting for them in the hallway outside Sophia's room. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "She's having a good day today," Miguel said. "My wife Maria is with her. I told them both that a friend from work wanted to visit." Miguel led them into the room. It was brightly painted with cartoon characters on the walls, but the medical equipment around the bed reminded everyone why they were there. Sophia sat propped up against pillows. She was small for 8 years old, with a colorful scarf wrapped around her head. Her mother sat in a chair next to the bed, holding her hand. "Sophia, Maria, this is my friend Louis from work," Miguel said, "and his friend Angela." Sophia looked up with curious eyes. Louis noticed they were the same warm brown as her father's, but larger and brighter. "Hello, Sophia," Louis said, keeping his voice casual. "Your dad talks about you all the time." Sophia studied him for a moment. "Do you fix cars too?" Louis smiled. "Sort of. I drive them, mostly." "Fast ones?" Sophia asked, perking up a little. "Very fast ones," Louis said, sitting in the chair Miguel offered him. "Your dad says you like racing?" Sophia's face lit up. "I love Formula One. Lewis Hamilton is my favorite driver. He's the best ever." Louis felt his heart skip a beat, but he kept his expression neutral. "Is that so? What do you like about him?" For the next 10 minutes, Sophia told Louis all about Lewis Hamilton. She explained his racing style, listed his championships, and described her favorite races in detail. Despite her illness, her eyes sparkled when she talked about racing. "And he's a good person too," Sophia finished. "He cares about important things, not just winning." "Like what?" Louis asked softly. "Like animals and the planet. And he stands up for people who are treated unfairly." Sophia's small hand touched the scarf on her head. "My hair fell out because of the medicine. Some kids at school were mean about it. But I remembered how Lewis Hamilton doesn't care what people say. He just does what's right." Louis felt his throat tighten. He reached for the gift bag Angela had brought and handed it to Sophia. "I brought you something." Inside was a small stuffed animal, a bulldog wearing racing goggles. Sophia giggled as she hugged it. "Thank you. I'll call him Roscoe," she said. "That's the name of Lewis Hamilton's real dog." Louis and Angela exchanged quick glances. Sophia was right. Roscoe was indeed the name of Lewis's beloved bulldog. The girl really did know her Hamilton facts. After the visit, Louis, Angela, and Miguel spoke quietly in the hallway. Maria stayed, with Sophia, who was showing her new stuffed dog the racing cars in her coloring book. "She's amazing," Louis said honestly. "So brave and smart." Miguel nodded, his eyes filled with pride and worry. "The doctors say the next round of treatment will be harder. She's already so tired." "Miguel," Louis said, "I've spoken to a specialist about that new treatment in Boston. If you're willing, she thinks Sophia would be a good candidate." Miguel's eyes widened. "But how? The waiting list, the cost." "Let me worry about that," Louis said. "I have connections that can help with the medical side. And the money." He shook his head firmly when Miguel started to protest. "Please, this is something I want to do." "Why?" Miguel asked simply. Louis thought about Sophia's words. He cares about important things, not just winning. Because some races matter more than others, Louis answered. This is one of those races. As they left the hospital, Angela gave Louis a curious look. You know, you could have just written a check and been done with it. That's what most celebrities would do. Louis watched a group of children playing in the hospital garden. One little girl in a wheelchair was being pushed by her mother, her face turned up to feel the sunshine. I don't want to just pay for her treatment, Louis said quietly. I want to be there for her, for both of them. Angela nodded. This won't be easy to keep quiet, you know. Your schedule is already packed. Then we'll need to be clever, Louis replied. I can visit between races, during times the press thinks I'm training or at the factory. He turned to face his trusted friend. Ang, I need you to help me create the perfect cover story. Operation Sophia, Angela said with a smile. Consider it done. What neither of them knew was that their secret plan would soon face challenges neither could have predicted, both on and off the racetrack. 2 weeks after his first visit with Sophia, Louis sat in the Mercedes garage at Silverstone Circuit. It was Friday practice for the British Grand Prix, his home race. Usually, Louis felt a special energy here. The British fans, the familiar track where he had won a record 8 times, it all gave him a boost, but today, his mind kept drifting. To Oxford Children's Hospital, Sophia had started a new round of treatments yesterday. Miguel had texted that she was having a rough time with the side effects. Louis? You with us, mate? Bono, his race engineer, was looking at him with concern. Yeah, sorry. Louis focused on the data screens showing his lap times. What were you saying about the tire temperatures? As Bono explained the technical details, Louis tried to push his worries aside. He had a job to do. Millions of fans were counting on him, including one special 8-year-old girl who believed Lewis Hamilton never gave up. Let's make some setup changes and try again, Louis said, reaching for his helmet. I can find more time in Sector 2. The weekend progressed with Louis fighting his way to a hard-earned 3rd place on Sunday. Not a win, but solid points for the championship battle against Max Verstappen, who had finished 2nd behind Charles Leclerc. After the podium ceremony, Louis rushed through his media duties. Angela had arranged for him to visit Sophia that evening. You were amazing, Sophia said when Louis walked into her hospital room. Her voice was weak, but her smile was bright. She was watching a replay of the race on a small tablet. Louis grinned, sitting in the chair next to her bed. Tonight, he wore a simple hoodie and jeans. It was only 3rd place, he said. But you passed 4 cars. Sophia's eyes widened. That move around the outside at Cop's Corner was so brave. Louis raised his eyebrows, impressed by her technical knowledge. You really know you're racing, don't you? For the next hour, they talked about the race. Louis explained some of the strategy decisions and what it felt like inside the car. Sophia soaked up every word. As visiting hours ended, Louis noticed Sophia's collection of small model race cars lined up on her bedside table. He picked up the silver Mercedes with the number 44, his car. Your dad said this was your birthday present? Sophia nodded. Best present ever. Someday I'm going to see a real race and watch Lewis Hamilton win. Lewis's heart tightened. He gently placed the car back in line with the others. I believe you will. Outside in the hallway, Miguel and Maria updated Louis on Sophia's condition. The doctors were concerned about how she was responding to the current treatments. We've sent her records to Boston like you suggested, Maria said. They think she would be a good candidate for their program. But there's still the waiting list, Miguel added. They say it could be 6 months. Louis frowned. That's too long. Let me see what I can do." The next day, Lewis called Dr. Roberts from his apartment in Monaco. "Sophia needs to get into that program sooner," he explained. "Her current treatment isn't working well enough." Dr. Roberts sighed. "I've been making calls. The issue isn't just the waiting list. They need to finish their current trial group before accepting new patients. That's why it's 6 months." Lewis thought for a moment. What if we helped fund the expansion of the trial? Would that allow them to accept more patients sooner? "Possibly," Dr. Roberts said, sounding surprised. "But we're talking about millions of pounds." "I can manage that," Lewis said simply. "Please find out what they need, and keep this between us." Lewis's next race was in Germany. He qualified on pole position but finished second after a tough battle with Max Verstappen. His team noticed something different about Lewis. He was driving as hard as ever, but he seemed distracted away from the track. "Everything okay, Lewis?" Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, asked during a debrief meeting. "You don't seem quite yourself lately." Lewis nodded. "Just focused on the championship." Toto studied him carefully, but didn't press further. Lewis Hamilton had earned the right to his privacy. In truth, Lewis was managing a complicated balancing act. Between races, he was visiting Sophia, talking with doctors, and secretly arranging finances for her treatment. He was also covering Miguel's shifts at Mercedes on days when Sophia needed both parents at the hospital. Lewis had quietly spoken to the cleaning supervisor, explaining that Miguel had family issues and offering to pay for temporary help. The strain was beginning to show. Lewis looked tired, and his performance, while still strong, wasn't at its usual dominant level. The racing press began to whisper that Hamilton was losing his edge. Some suggested that at 36, maybe time was finally catching up with the champion. After a disappointing fourth-place finish in Hungary, Lewis scrolled through the critical headlines on his phone. Then he opened his messages and found a photo from Maria, Sophia sitting up in bed, giving a thumbs up while watching the race replay on TV. Lewis smiled. This was what mattered. Dr. Roberts called the next day with good news. The Boston program was willing to expand their trial immediately if Lewis provided the funding. Sophia could start treatment in 3 weeks. "There's a complication, though," Dr. Roberts added. "One of the parents needs to stay in Boston for the entire 3-month treatment program. The other can visit, but they need one consistent caregiver on site." Lewis thought about Miguel and Maria's jobs. Would it be better for Sophia if both parents could be there? Ideally, yes. The emotional support is important for recovery. "Then we'll make it happen," Lewis said firmly. The next challenge was getting Sophia well enough to travel. Lewis consulted with Angela, who suggested bringing Sophia's medical team to his private plane to ensure she had care during the flight. Everything was coming together, but time was running short. The Formula One season was entering its most intense phase, with races on 3 consecutive weekends. Lewis would need to perform at his best to stay in championship contention. Meanwhile, a sharp-eyed junior reporter for a racing blog had noticed something odd. Lewis Hamilton had been spotted entering Oxford Children's Hospital multiple times in recent weeks. The reporter began asking questions, taking photos, and digging into hospital visitor logs. Lewis was unaware of this as he prepared for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. His focus was split between the crucial race and the final arrangements for Sophia's journey to Boston, scheduled for the following week. What Lewis didn't know was that the story was about to break wide open, and that an unexpected betrayal from inside the Mercedes team would put everything at risk. The Italian Grand Prix weekend started with a surprise. Lewis arrived at the Monza paddock to find Toto Wolff waiting for him outside the Mercedes motorhome. "We need to talk," Toto said quietly. In private, inside Toto's office, Lewis found Peter Davis, the head of Mercedes Public Relations, looking uncomfortable. "What's going on?" Lewis asked, setting down his bag. Toto slid a tablet across the desk. On the screen was an email from a reporter named Jamie Wilson at Racing Today blog. The subject line read, "Request for comment on Lewis Hamilton's hospital. Visits." Lewis read the email quickly. The reporter had photos of him entering Oxford Children's Hospital on 5 different dates. They also claimed to have information about Lewis paying for a child's medical treatment and covering for an employee's missed work. "Is this true?" Toto asked, his voice calm but serious. Lewis met his team principal's eyes. "Yes. The girl's father works here at Mercedes. She's very sick." Peter sighed. "Lewis, you know you should have come to us first. We could have handled this properly through the team's charitable foundation." "I wanted to keep it private," Lewis explained. "This isn't about publicity." "Noble intentions," Toto acknowledged. "But now we have a situation. This reporter is going to publish tomorrow." Peter nodded. "We can work with this. We'll release a statement about Lewis's charitable work, arrange a proper photo opportunity at the hospital." "No," Lewis interrupted firmly. "I promised the family privacy. The girl doesn't even know who I really am." He ran a hand over his face. "She's flying to Boston next week for experimental treatment. She needs peace, not cameras and reporters." Toto and Peter exchanged looks. "Who leaked this?" Lewis asked suddenly. "The reporter mentioned information about me covering shifts. Only a few people knew about that arrangement." "We're looking into it," Toto said. "For now, we need to decide how to respond." Lewis thought for a moment. "Tell the reporter I'll give an exclusive interview after the race on Sunday, if they hold the story for 1 week." "That might work," Peter said. "But what will you say in the interview?" "I don't know yet," Lewis admitted. "I need to talk to Sophia's parents first." Practice sessions that day didn't go well. Lewis struggled with the car's setup and finished 6th in the timesheets. His mind wasn't on racing. That evening, Lewis called Miguel and Maria from his hotel room and explained the situation. They were silent for a long moment after he finished. "What does this mean for Sophia's treatment?" Maria finally asked, her voice tight with worry. "Nothing changes with the medical plans," Lewis assured them. "But we need to decide whether to tell Sophia who I really am before she hears it from somewhere else." Miguel sighed. "She's so excited about going to Boston. This news might be too much right now." "I have an idea," Lewis said slowly. "But it's your decision." On Saturday morning, Lewis performed better in qualifying, securing 4th position on the grid. Afterwards, he spent an hour on the phone with Dr. Roberts, discussing whether the publicity might affect Sophia's place in the Boston program. "Medically, nothing changes," Dr. Roberts confirmed. "But the hospital might have concerns about privacy if this becomes a big story." Lewis thanked her and made another call, this one to his own doctor, who managed Lewis's medical information and travel health needs throughout the racing season. "I need a cover story," Lewis explained, "something believable to explain why I might miss a race." The doctor was silent for a moment. "Food poisoning is common and can be severe enough to sideline you. Or we could say you're having tests for an undisclosed health concern. Would either of those work on short notice?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "But Lewis, are you actually considering missing a Grand Prix? In the middle of a championship battle?" Lewis looked out his hotel window at the Italian countryside. "I hope not, but I need to be ready if Sophia needs me." On Sunday morning, just hours before the race, Lewis received unexpected news. The reporter from Racing Today had agreed to delay publication for 1 week in exchange for the promised exclusive interview. It bought them precious time. The race itself was chaotic. Rain fell halfway through, causing several crashes. Lewis drove cautiously at first, then charged through the field as the track dried. He finished second, cutting Max Verstappen's championship lead by valuable points. In the cool-down room before the podium ceremony, Max studied Lewis curiously. "You seem different lately," the Dutch driver commented. "Everything okay?" Lewis nodded. "Just focused." After the celebrations, Lewis declined a team dinner and returned to his hotel. He had a video call scheduled with Sophia. Her face lit up when she saw him on the screen. "You were amazing today. Second place." Lewis smiled. "Thanks. How are you feeling about the trip to Boston?" Sophia's expression turned serious. "A little scared. Mom says the doctors there are the best, but it's okay to be scared," Lewis finished for her. "Even racing drivers get scared sometimes." "Really?" Sophia looked doubtful. "Even Lewis Hamilton?" Lewis took a deep breath. He'd made his decision. "Sophia, there's something important I need to tell you before your trip. Something about me." Sophia tilted her head, confused. "The thing is," Lewis continued, his heart racing, "I haven't been completely honest about who I am." The moment of truth had arrived, and Lewis knew there was no turning back. Whatever happened next would change everything. For Sophia, for him, and for his racing season. Sophia stared at Lewis through the video call, her eyes wide. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Who are you, really?" Lewis took a deep breath. "My name really is Lewis, but I'm Lewis Hamilton." For a moment, Sophia just blinked at the screen. Then she laughed. "No way! You can't be!" "It's true," Lewis said gently. "I'm the same Lewis Hamilton you've been telling me about." Sophia's smile faded as she studied his face more carefully. Her eyes grew even wider. But you look different on TV. And why didn't you tell me?" "I wear a racing helmet a lot on TV," Lewis explained. "And I didn't tell you because I wanted to be your friend, not a famous person you see on television." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, processing this news. Lewis waited, his heart pounding. "Does this mean?" Sophia finally said, her voice small. "That I've been telling Lewis Hamilton all about Lewis Hamilton?" Lewis couldn't help but smile. "You have. And you know more about me than most reporters." Sophia's face turned bright red. Then she covered her mouth and giggled. "That's so embarrassing." "Not at all," Lewis assured her. "It made me happy to hear what you think of me. It reminded me why I race." Sophia's parents appeared in the frame, and Lewis explained the situation with the reporter. They discussed how to handle things going forward, now that the secret was out. "I think it's best if we get ahead of this story," Lewis said. "If you're comfortable with it, I'd like to talk about Sophia in my interview, not sharing private medical details, but explaining why I've been visiting." Miguel and Maria exchanged looks before nodding. "Yes, but we need to keep the focus on Sophia's treatment, not on—" Miguel paused. "Not on me," Lewis finished. "I completely agree." After the call ended, Lewis texted Angela. "Operation Sophia is changing. New plan needed." The next morning, Lewis did something unexpected. He called Max Verstappen, his fiercest rival on the track. "I need to talk to you about something personal," Lewis said. "Can you keep a secret?" Max was surprised, but agreed to listen. Lewis told him about Sophia, the Boston treatment, and the reporter about to break the story. "That's why I've been off my game lately," Lewis concluded. "But I'd rather lose the championship than let this child down." There was silence on the line. Lewis and Max had a complicated relationship. Their battles were intense, sometimes crossing the line into controversy. But they shared a deep respect for racing. "What do you need from me?" Max finally asked. "I might need to miss a race if there's an emergency with Sophia's treatment," Lewis explained. "If that happens, there will be rumors. I'm asking that you don't feed into speculation." "I won't," Max promised. "And Lewis? I hope she gets better." Encouraged by Max's response, Lewis reached out to other drivers. Charles Leclerc, who had lost his father to illness. Daniel Ricciardo, known for his big heart. Sebastian Vettel, whose own charity work was extensive but private. Each conversation was personal and confidential. By Wednesday, Lewis had spoken, with nearly half the grid. He was selective, trusting drivers who understood the value of privacy. To his surprise, each one offered more than just discretion. They wanted to help. Charles suggested a subtle show of support. "What if we all wear a small purple ribbon on our racing suits? Purple for pediatric cancer awareness. No announcements, just quiet solidarity." Daniel offered his private plane as backup if Lewis's wasn't available for emergency trips to Boston. Sebastian, ever practical, said, "Let me talk to my financial team. I want to contribute to the medical fund, anonymously." On Thursday, Lewis's phone rang with a call from an unexpected name, Nico Rosberg. Lewis's former teammate and once close friend had become his rival during their fierce championship battles. At Mercedes, they had barely spoken since Nico retired after winning the 2016 title. "I heard what you're doing for this girl," Nico said. "Toto called me." "Oh," Lewis said, unsure what to expect. "I want to help," Nico continued. "My foundation works with children's hospitals. We can create a support network for the family. No publicity required." Lewis was speechless for a moment. "Thank you, Nico. That would mean a lot. Some things are bigger than racing," Nico said simply. Lewis had one more important call to make. He phoned Peter, the Mercedes PR head, about the upcoming interview with Racing Today. "I've been thinking about how to handle this," Lewis said. "I want to make a deal with them." "What kind of deal?" Peter asked warily. "Exclusive access, but on my terms," Lewis explained. "They get the story first, but they need to respect Sophia's privacy. No photos of her, no medical details. The focus stays on pediatric cancer awareness, not on making me look like a hero." Peter sounded impressed. "That might work. Let me arrange a meeting." Lewis had one final preparatory step. That evening, he visited Sophia at the hospital, his first visit since revealing his identity. He brought a special gift, a small racing helmet, custom-made to match his own, with Sophia's name on the back. Sophia's eyes lit up when she saw it. "It's perfect!" As they talked, Lewis noticed Sophia was less shy now, but still the same thoughtful girl. She didn't treat him differently. She still corrected his memories about past races and asked intelligent questions about the car's performance. Before leaving, Lewis knelt beside her bed. "Sophia, many people are going to find out about our friendship soon. Some might say nice things, others might say silly things, but whatever happens, remember that I'm still just Lewis, your dad's friend who drives cars." Sophia nodded seriously. "I know, and I'm still just Sophia." Lewis smiled. "Exactly. And nothing is more important than you getting better." As Lewis walked through the hospital parking lot afterward, his phone buzzed with a message from Angela. "Urgent. Jamie Wilson from Racing Today was spotted in hospital reception asking about Sophia. Story might break tonight." Lewis stopped in his tracks. They were out of time. Lewis called Angela immediately. "I need to get back to the hospital right now," he said, already turning around. "No," Angela replied firmly. That will only confirm the story for the reporter. I'm handling it. Toto is sending our legal team. Just get to the airport as planned. Louis hesitated, torn between helping directly and making things worse. Trust me, Angela insisted. The best thing you can do is make sure the flight to Boston is ready. I'll update you every step of the way. Louis reluctantly agreed and headed to his car. As he drove to the private airfield, he called Dr. Roberts. The EP story might break tonight, Louis explained. Can we move Sophia's transfer to Boston sooner? I was going to call you, Dr. Roberts said. The Boston team just confirmed they can take Sophia tomorrow instead of next week. They had a cancellation. Tomorrow? Louis checked his watch. It was already 7 p.m. That's perfect timing. But it's very rushed, Dr. Roberts warned. The medical transport team would need to pick her up at 5 a.m. We can make it work, Louis said. My plane is fueled and ready. The flight crew is on standby. What else do you need? As Louis worked through the logistics with Dr. Roberts, his other phone buzzed with messages from Angela. Reporter removed from hospital. Security increased. Then, Maria says Sophia's excited about early departure. Packing now. Finally, Mercedes PR team meeting with Jamie Wilson from Racing Today. Negotiations ongoing. Louis reached the private airfield and hurried into the terminal. His pilot, Captain Reynolds, was waiting. Change of plans, Louis said. We need to fly tonight, Captain Reynolds nodded. Weather looks good. Where to? Oxford to pick up passengers, then straight to Boston. Medical flight? Yes. We'll have a doctor and nurse on board with the patient. While the flight crew prepared, Louis made more calls. He arranged for a car service to meet Miguel and Maria at their home and bring them to the airfield. He made sure the Boston hospital was ready for Sophia's early arrival. He contacted Nico Rosberg about having someone meet the family in Boston to help with housing and transportation. The pieces were falling into place, but the timeline was incredibly tight. Louis's phone rang. It was Peter from Mercedes PR. I have good news and bad news, Peter said. The good news is that Racing Today has agreed to delay their main story until tomorrow evening. They accepted our terms about Sophia's privacy. And the bad news? They're posting a shorter story tonight, just saying you've been involved with helping a sick child. No details about Sophia or her family. But it will be public that you're doing something charitable, Louis sighed. I guess that's the best we can hope for. There's more, Peter continued. The story has already leaked to other media outlets. They're all scrambling to figure out what's happening. How bad is it? Right now, it's just speculation. But once Racing Today posts tonight, it's going to explode. Every reporter will be looking for details. Louis thanked Peter and checked his messages again. Angela had sent an update. Sophia's medical team is ready. Hospital discharge papers signed. The clock was ticking. Louis paced the terminal, watching. The minutes pass. Finally, at 10:30 p.m., the cars arrived with Sophia's family and medical team. Miguel looked exhausted, but determined as he helped load Sophia's things onto the plane. Maria held Sophia's hand as the medical team carefully transferred her from the medical van to the aircraft. The little girl was pale but smiling, clutching her stuffed bulldog Roscoe in one arm. "Louis!" Sophia exclaimed when she saw him. "Are we really flying on your plane?" "We sure are," Louis replied, crouching beside her stretcher. "It's going to be a smooth, comfortable ride." Sophia grinned. "Just like you're driving, right?" Louis laughed. "Even smoother." As the medical team secured Sophia for takeoff, Louis updated Miguel and Maria on the developing media situation. The first story will break tonight, but it won't mention Sophia's name or show her picture, he explained. By the time the full story comes out tomorrow evening, you'll be safely in Boston, away from the press." Maria squeezed Louis's hand. "Thank you for everything." "We're not done yet," Louis said. "There's still a lot to manage." Once everyone was on board, Louis checked his phone one last time before takeoff. There was a message from Toto. "Just saw the Racing Today headline. We'll handle things here. Focus on the girl." Louis turned off his phone as the plane taxied to the runway. He looked over at Sophia, who was watching out the window with wide eyes. "First time on a private jet?" he asked. Sophia nodded. "It's so fancy." "Wait until you see this," Louis told her, pressing a button that reclined her seat into a more comfortable position. "You can sleep the whole way if you want." "Will you tell me a racing story?" Sophia asked hopefully. Of course. As they took off into the night sky, Louis told Sophia about his first Formula One win in Canada. He described the feeling of crossing the finish line, knowing he had achieved his childhood dream. Sophia listened intently, asking questions about the details that only a true racing fan would think to ask. The flight across the Atlantic was smooth. The medical team monitored Sophia, who eventually fell asleep holding her stuffed dog. Miguel and Maria rested too, exhausted from the stress and rapid preparations. Louis stayed awake, going over plans for when they landed. Arrangements had been made for a medical transport to take Sophia directly to the hospital. A hotel near the hospital was ready for Miguel and Maria. Nico's foundation had arranged for a support person to help with anything they needed. Halfway through the flight, Louis received an email that could be delivered to the plane's system. It was from Peter, with a link to the Racing Today article that had just been published. Exclusive, Lewis Hamilton's secret mission, F1 star helping sick child. The short article mentioned that Louis had been visiting a child in the hospital and was involved in arranging medical treatment. It didn't name Sophia or give any details about her condition. The tone was respectful, focusing on Louis's desire for privacy rather than publicity. Louis felt a wave of relief. They had gained valuable time. By tomorrow night, when the full story broke, Sophia would be settled in the Boston hospital, protected from the media storm. As dawn broke over the Atlantic, the pilot announced they were beginning their descent into Boston. Louis looked out the window at the pink and orange sky. "We made it," he thought. Step 1 complete. But even as the plane descended toward Boston, Louis knew the real challenges were just beginning. Sophia's treatment would be difficult and uncertain. And back in the Formula One world, there was a Singapore Grand Prix in just 5 days that Louis was nowhere near prepared for. The race against time was far from over. 2 days after landing in Boston, Louis stood in the hallway of Boston Children's 16 Hospital, talking quietly with Dr. Emily Chen, the specialist leading Sophia's treatment program. "The preliminary tests look promising," Dr. Chen said, reviewing charts on her tablet. "Sophia's a good candidate for the therapy. We'll start tomorrow morning." "How long will the first treatment take?" Louis asked. "About 6 hours. Then we'll monitor her for 48 hours for any reactions." Louis nodded, doing mental calculations. The Formula One team was expecting him in Singapore tomorrow for Thursday's media day. Friday would be practice sessions. "I need to be honest with you," Louis told Dr. Chen. "I'm supposed to be racing in Singapore this weekend. I was planning to fly out tonight, but you're worried about Sophia," Dr. Chen finished for him. "I understand. The first treatment is often the hardest." Louis checked his phone. There were 27 missed calls from various Mercedes team members. The full story about his involvement with Sophia had broken last night, creating a media frenzy. His social media accounts were flooded with messages. Most were supportive, but racing analysts were already questioning his commitment to the championship. I should go, Lewis said reluctantly. The team needs me. Dr. Chen smiled kindly. I can't tell you what to do, Mr. Hamilton, but I can tell you that Sophia keeps asking if you'll be here tomorrow. Lewis thanked her and walked to Sophia's room. The little girl was sitting up in bed, coloring a picture of a race car. Miguel and Maria were unpacking clothes into the small closet. Lewis, Sophia said brightly when she saw him. Look what I made. Lewis examined her drawing. That's an excellent Mercedes. You even got the halo design right. Sophia beamed with pride. Are you staying for my treatment tomorrow? Mom said it might be scary. Lewis felt his heart twist. He glanced at Miguel and Maria, who looked at him with understanding in their eyes. They knew what he was supposed to be doing. I'll be right here, Lewis promised, making his decision. We're a team now, right? Sophia nodded seriously. Team Sophia Lewis. Unbeatable. Later that afternoon, Lewis stepped outside the hospital to make the hardest phone call of his career. He dialed Toto Wolff directly. Lewis, finally, Toto answered. Where are you? The team plane leaves in 3 hours. I'm not coming, Toto, Lewis said quietly. I need to stay in Boston. There was a long silence. Lewis, I understand what you're doing is important, but this is the championship we're talking about. You're only 8 points behind Max? I know, but Sophia starts her treatment tomorrow. The doctors say the first 48 hours are critical. Can't you fly out after it starts? Even arriving late? No, Lewis said firmly. I promised her I'd be here. And Toto, I need to be here. Another long pause. You understand what this means, Lewis? If you miss this race, the championship is probably over. Some things are more important than trophies, Lewis replied. Even world championships. Toto sighed heavily. I'll tell the team. We'll need to prepare George to lead the weekend. And Lewis? The press is going to be brutal about this. I know. Tell them the truth. I'm supporting a sick child through a medical procedure. That's all they need to know. After ending the call, Lewis texted Angela. Decision made. Staying in Boston. Need you to bring some things from the hotel. Angela's reply came quickly. Already packed a bag. On my way. Lewis sat on a bench outside the hospital, feeling strangely peaceful, despite knowing the storm this would create in the racing world. He scrolled through his messages, stopping at one from an unexpected sender, Max Verstappen. Heard rumors you might miss Singapore. Is it about the girl? If yes, you're doing the right thing. Some battles matter more than others. MV Lewis smiled slightly. His greatest rival understood what many others wouldn't. The next morning, as Poids-du Formula One teams arrived in Singapore for the night race, something unprecedented happened. The Mercedes garage remained closed. Engineers unpacked equipment, while journalists gathered outside, speculating wildly about Lewis Hamilton's absence. Inside the team motorhome, Toto Wolff faced a mob of reporters. He raised his hands for quiet. Lewis Hamilton will not be participating in the Singapore Grand Prix, Toto announced. He is currently in Boston, supporting a young patient through a critical medical procedure. That's all I can share due to privacy concerns. The press erupted with questions. Is this related to the story about his secret hospital visits? Has he abandoned the championship? Why couldn't this wait until after the race? Is this a publicity stunt? Toto answered firmly, Lewis made a commitment to someone who needs him. It's a personal matter, not a publicity stunt. The team fully supports his decision. Meanwhile, in Boston, Lewis sat beside Sophia's bed as medical staff prepared her for the first treatment. She looked tiny and fragile in the large hospital bed, her small hand gripping Lewis's tightly. It won't hurt, the nurse assured her. "You'll just feel a bit cold during the procedure." Sophia nodded bravely, but Louis could feel her hand trembling. He pulled his phone from his pocket and showed her something. "Look what just arrived," he said. It was a photo from the Singapore paddock. Every driver on the grid was wearing a small purple ribbon on their racing suit. At the bottom of the image was a message from Sebastian Vettel. "We're all Team Sophia today." Sophia's eyes widened. "All the drivers? Even Max Verstappen?" "Even Max," Louis confirmed. "They all wanted you to know they're thinking of you." A slow smile spread across Sophia's face. "That's so cool." As the medical team began the treatment, Louis stayed right where he promised he would be, at Sophia's side, holding her hand. 8,000 miles away in Singapore, cars roared around the track. Without him, for the first time in his career, Lewis Hamilton was missing a Grand Prix by choice. That night, as Sophia slept peacefully after completing her first treatment, Lewis checked the qualifying results. George Russell had put the Mercedes in 4th place. Not bad, but not where Lewis would have been. The championship was slipping away, yet looking at Sophia's peaceful face, Lewis felt no regret, only certainty that he was exactly where he needed to be. Lewis woke to the sound of his phone buzzing. It was 5 a.m. in Boston. He carefully moved from the reclining chair where he'd been sleeping in Sophia's hospital room and stepped into the hallway. "It," was Angela calling. "Louis, how's Sophia doing?" "Good so far," Louis said quietly. "The doctors say her first treatment went well. No major side effects yet." "That's wonderful," Angela replied. "But Louis, things are crazy here in Singapore. The press is going wild with speculation. Some are saying you're finished with Formula One." Louis shook his head. "That's ridiculous." "I know, but you need to make a decision about the Russian Grand Prix next weekend." Louis hadn't thought that far ahead. He'd been focused entirely on Sophia's first treatment. "What's Toto saying?" "He's supporting you publicly, but he's under pressure from the team owners. And Lewis, Max won today. He's extended his championship lead to 33 points. Lewis felt a pang of disappointment, but pushed it aside. "Keep me updated. I'll talk to Sophia's doctors today about the next steps." After ending the call, Lewis checked his messages. Among dozens from team members and friends was one from his father, Anthony Hamilton. "Son, I've never been more proud of you than I am, right now. Some victories aren't counted in points. Call me when you can." Lewis smiled. His father had always taught him that character mattered more than trophies. Later that morning, Dr. Chen shared good news. Sophia was responding well to the treatment. She would need to stay in the hospital for monitoring, but if things continued positively, the next treatment wouldn't be for 3 weeks. "So, theoretically," Lewis asked, "if I needed to be somewhere next weekend?" Dr. Chen nodded. "As long as there are no complications this week, Sophia should be stable. But I can't promise anything. These treatments can have delayed reactions." Lewis thanked her and went to talk with Miguel and Maria. They sat in the small waiting area near Sophia's room, drinking coffee. "You need to go back to racing," Maria said, before Lewis could even bring it up. "Sophia is worried about you missing more races because of her." "She's been watching the news on her tablet," Miguel explained. "She knows people are saying you might lose the championship." Lewis sighed. "I don't want her worrying about that." "Then you should race," Maria said firmly. "We'll keep you updated on everything. The doctors here are amazing, and your friend Nico's foundation has arranged for anything we need." Lewis thought about it. If he flew back tomorrow, he could have 3 days at the factory to prepare for Russia. It wasn't ideal, but it might be enough. "Let me talk to Sophia first," he said. When Lewis entered her room, Sophia was drawing again. This time it was a picture of a hospital with a racetrack wrapped around it. "That's creative," Lewis said, sitting beside her. Sophia grinned. "It's my dream hospital. Patients can watch races from their windows." Lewis laughed. "I'd visit that hospital even when I'm not sick." Sophia's smile faded. "Lewis, you should go back to racing. I saw on the news that Max is beating you now." "Don't worry about that," Lewis assured her. "But I do worry," Sophia insisted. "You might lose because of me." "Sophia, listen." Lewis took her small hand in his. "Some things are more important than winning races, like keeping promises to friends." Sophia thought about this. "But you already kept your promise. You stayed for my first treatment. Now you should go win the championship. For both of us." Lewis felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Are you sure?" Sophia nodded seriously. Team Sophia Lewis needs a trophy. That evening, Lewis made the calls to arrange his return. His plane would depart Boston the next morning, getting him back to the UK with just enough time to prepare for Russia. Before leaving the hospital, Lewis sat with Sophia one last time. "I'll be watching every lap," Sophia promised. "And I'll be thinking of you on every lap," Lewis replied. "We made a deal, right? I race while you get better." Sophia nodded. "Deal." As Lewis stood to leave, Sophia reached for something beside her bed, the small model helmet Lewis had given her. "Take this for good luck," she said, handing it to him. Lewis accepted the miniature helmet, deeply touched. "I'll bring it back with a victory." The journey back to the United Kingdom was long and tiring. Lewis landed in the early hours of the Day morning and went straight to the Mercedes factory in Brackley. The team was surprised to see him walk through the doors at 7 a.m., but they quickly rallied. "We have a lot of work to do," Lewis told his engineers. "I've missed an entire race weekend." For the next 3 days, Lewis barely slept. He spent hours in the simulator, working to make up for lost practice time. He reviewed data from Singapore, studied the Sochi track in Russia, and worked with his team on setups and strategy. The press was relentless, camping outside the factory for any glimpse of him. Toto managed them with brief statements, keeping Lewis focused on preparation. When Lewis finally arrived in Sochi for the Russian Grand Prix, he was exhausted but determined. During Thursday's press conference, journalists bombarded him with questions about his absence. "Lewis, do you regret missing Singapore now that your championship hopes are fading?" Lewis answered calmly. "I made the right choice, for the right reasons. Now I'm here to race." Has this experience changed you as a driver? Lewis thought about Sophia's courage during her treatment. "It's given me perspective, and sometimes perspective makes you stronger." Friday practice didn't go well. Lewis struggled with the car setup, finishing an uncharacteristic 8th in both sessions. The team worked late into the night making adjustments. Saturday morning brought rain. Heavy, persistent rain that threatened to cancel qualifying. As Lewis prepared in the garage, his phone buzzed with a message from Miguel. "Sophia watching practice. Says your racing line in turn 3 needs work." Her words, not mine. Lewis laughed out loud, drawing curious looks from his mechanics. The message lifted his spirits. Sophia was still Sophia. Still the racing expert even from her hospital bed. When qualifying finally began on a wet track, most drivers struggled with the slippery conditions. Lewis, however, found something extra. With each lap, he got faster, more confident. By the final session, he was flying, splashing through standing water with perfect precision. To everyone's astonishment, Lewis took pole position by nearly a full second over Max Verstappen. "Where did that come from?" his race engineer Bono asked. Over the radio, Lewis touched the small helmet hanging from a chain around his neck, Sophia's good luck charm. "Let's just say I had some expert coaching on my racing line," he replied. The next day, starting from pole position but carrying the weight of his missed race, Lewis Hamilton faced his toughest challenge yet. Winning from the front, while the world watched and questioned his commitment, and somewhere in a Boston hospital room, a little girl with a new chance at life prepared to watch every lap, believing in him even when others doubted. Race day in Sochi dawned clear and dry. Lewis stood on the grid, focusing his mind before climbing into the car. The pre-race ceremonies felt longer than usual. Every camera seemed to be pointed at him, every commentator discussing his return after missing Singapore. When the 5 red lights went out, Lewis made a perfect start, holding his lead into the first corner. Max Verstappen followed closely, looking for any weakness. But Lewis drove flawlessly, gradually building a gap lap after lap. "Tire temperatures look good, Lewis," Bono said over the radio. "Keep doing what you're doing." Halfway through the race, dark clouds appeared on the horizon. The weather radar showed rain approaching. "Potential rain in 10 minutes, Bono warned. Lewis thought quickly. Rain would change everything. Some drivers would gamble by staying out on dry tires, hoping the shower would pass quickly. Others would pit immediately for wet tires. "Let's be ready for either option," Lewis replied. "I'll make the call when the time comes." When the first drops hit the track, Lewis felt it before his team could tell him. The car moved differently, sliding slightly in the corners. "Rain at turn 4, he reported. "Getting heavier." "Box this lap?" Bono asked. Lewis glanced at the sky, making a split-second decision based on decades of racing experience. "No, it's going to get worse. I'm staying out one more lap." That single lap made all the difference. Most drivers pitted immediately, but Lewis's extra lap in the worsening rain gave him crucial information about which parts of the track were most slippery. When he finally changed to wet tires, he rejoined the race still in the lead. As the rain intensified, Lewis's experience shone through. While others struggled for grip, he found the best lines around the treacherous track. By the checkered flag, he had won by an astonishing 27 seconds. "Get in there, Lewis!" Bono shouted as Lewis crossed the finish line. "What a drive!" In the cool-down room before the podium ceremony, Max Verstappen approached Lewis. "That was something special," Max said, extending his hand. "How did you know exactly when to pit?" Lewis smiled. "Just a feeling." What he didn't say was that he'd been thinking about Sophia during those crucial moments. Her courage had reminded him to trust his instincts. The victory celebration was brief. While other drivers headed to parties or flights home, Lewis went straight to a quiet corner of the paddock for a video call with Sophia. Her face lit up when she saw him. "You won! I knew you would." "Thanks to your racing tips," Lewis said with a grin. "Did my helmet bring good luck?" Lewis touched the miniature helmet still hanging around his neck. "The best luck." That night, Lewis finally allowed himself to check social media. The win had shifted the narrative. Instead of questioning his commitment, most commentators were now praising his resilience. The hashtag Sanders Team Sophia Lewis was trending worldwide. But one post caught his attention. A photo taken in the Mercedes garage during the race. In the background was a sheet of paper with Sophia's full name and hospital details. Someone had left it visible during a TV broadcast, and now her identity was becoming public. Lewis immediately called Peter from Mercedes PR. "We have a problem," Lewis explained. "Sophia's information is out there now." "I've seen it," Peter confirmed. "It's spreading fast. We need to get ahead of this." "I promised her parents privacy," Lewis said, his voice tight with frustration. "Someone in our team was careless." "We're investigating who took that photo," Peter assured him. "But right now, we need to protect Sophia from media attention." Lewis made more calls that night, to Miguel and Maria, to the hospital security team, in Boston, to Nico Rosberg, whose foundation was helping the family. Extra security was arranged. The hospital set up screening protocols for visitors. The next morning, Lewis was preparing to leave Russia when he received an unexpected message from Jamie Wilson, the reporter from Racing Today. "I know you're angry about Sophia's privacy being violated. It wasn't me. But I have information about who leaked the original story. Meet me before you leave." Lewis was suspicious, but curious. He agreed to a brief meeting in a quiet corner of the hotel lobby. Jamie looked nervous when they met. "First, congratulations on the win. It was impressive." "Thanks," Lewis said coolly. "You said you have information?" Jamie nodded. "The original leak about you visiting the hospital. It came from someone at Mercedes, someone who had access to your schedule and knew about the arrangement with Miguel's shifts." Lewis frowned. "How do you know this?" "Because they contacted me directly, offering the story." "I have the emails." Jamie handed Lewis a folder. "There's something else you should know. This person has been talking to other media outlets, feeding them information about Sophia." Lewis looked through the printed emails, his anger growing. The sender's name had been removed, but the emails contained details only someone within Mercedes would know. "Why are you showing me this?" Lewis asked. "Isn't this burning your source?" Jamie looked uncomfortable. "I've been a racing journalist for 12 years. I want the inside scoop, yes, but I never wanted to hurt a sick child. When I saw that photo of her details going public," she shook her head. "Some lines shouldn't be crossed." Lewis studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you, this helps." On the flight back to the UK, Lewis reviewed everything he knew. Someone inside Mercedes was deliberately leaking information. But who? And why? He texted Angela. "Need to talk when I land. We have a mole in the team." As Lewis's plane crossed, Europe, Boston was waking up to a new day. Sophia opened her eyes to find her room filled with flowers, cards, and stuffed animals. Gifts from Formula One fans around the world who had discovered her story. Her parents tried to shield her from the attention, but it was impossible to hide the avalanche of support. What no one knew, not even Lewis, was that as Sophia's story spread, someone from Mercedes was traveling to Boston. Someone with a connection to this story that would soon change everything. 3 weeks after Lewis's victory in Russia, Sophia sat in her hospital room in Boston, watching highlights of the Japanese Grand Prix. Lewis had finished second, keeping his championship hopes alive. The gap to Max Verstappen was now 21 points, with 4 races remaining. Sophia's room had become something of a Formula One shrine. Cards and letters from fans covered one wall. Team caps and small gifts from drivers filled the shelves. A large hand-painted banner from the Mercedes factory workers hung over her bed, reading, "Team Sophia Lewis forever." "How are you feeling today?" Dr. Chen asked, entering the room for her daily checkup. "Good," Sophia replied brightly. "My headache is gone." Dr. Chen smiled as she checked Sophia's vital signs. "Your latest test results are encouraging. The treatment is working better than we expected." Miguel and Maria exchanged hopeful glances. The past 3 weeks had been a roller coaster. Sophia's first week in Boston had been difficult. with painful side effects from the treatment. But gradually, her strength had returned. Her appetite improved. The sparkle came back to her eyes. "When can I have my next treatment?" Sophia asked. "Tomorrow," Dr. Chen answered. "And if all goes well, you might be able to leave the hospital next week. Not to go home yet, but to stay at the apartment nearby." Sophia clapped her hands excitedly. "Can we watch the next race on a bigger TV there?" Everyone laughed. Sophia's passion for Formula One had only grown stronger through her treatment. She followed every practice session, qualifying, and race. She had video calls with Lewis after each event, giving him her analysis of his performance. Later that afternoon, while Sophia was napping, Miguel and Maria met with a hospital administrator in a small conference room. "We've received another installment of funding for Sophia's treatment," the administrator explained, reviewing documents on her computer. "Everything is covered through the completion of the program. We can never thank Lewis enough," Maria said quietly. The administrator looked confused. "Lewis Hamilton? The funding isn't coming from him." Miguel frowned. "What? But he arranged everything." "Let me check." The administrator typed on her keyboard. "The funding for Sophia's treatment is coming from the Sanchez Family Foundation. It was established 3 weeks ago." Miguel and Maria looked at each other in shock. Neither of them had wealthy relatives or any connection to a foundation with their name. "There must be some mistake," Miguel said. "We don't have a family foundation." "Well, someone created one specifically for Sophia's care," the administrator replied. "The paperwork was handled by lawyers from London. I assumed you knew." After the meeting, Miguel called Lewis, who was in Japan preparing to fly to the next race in Texas. "Did you set up a foundation in our name?" Miguel asked. "No," Lewis sounded surprised. "I've been paying for everything directly." "Why?" Miguel explained about the mysterious Sanchez Family Foundation. Lewis promised to look into it immediately. The next morning, as Sophia was preparing for her second treatment, a visitor arrived at the hospital, a tall, gray-haired man in an expensive suit. He spoke with the reception staff, then sat quietly in the waiting area, occasionally checking his watch. When Miguel stepped out of Sophia's room to get coffee, he noticed the man. There was something familiar about him, but Miguel couldn't place it. The man stood. "Mr. Sanchez? Miguel Sanchez?" Miguel nodded cautiously. "Yes?" "My name is Richard Wilson. I'm the technical director at Mercedes Formula One." He extended his hand. "I flew in from the factory in Brackley yesterday." Miguel shook his hand, confused. "Is Lewis okay?" "Lewis is fine," Richard assured him. "I'm here about Sophia, and about you." They sat in a quiet corner of the waiting area. Richard seemed nervous, clasping and unclasping his hands. "I need to tell you something," Richard began. "Something that happened many years ago." Miguel listened as Richard spoke about a young kart racer he had met in the early 1990s. A talented boy from Stevenage, England, whose family struggled to afford racing. The boy's father worked multiple jobs to support his son's dream. One weekend, Richard continued, they couldn't afford to repair the kart after a crash in practice. The boy was devastated. My father owned the track where they raced. He was a mechanic, not wealthy, but skilled. He fixed the kart for free that night. Miguel's eyes widened as the story continued. That boy was Lewis Hamilton, Richard said, and the mechanic who helped him was Roberto Sanchez, your father. Miguel felt like the floor had dropped away beneath him. My father? But how do you know this? Because Roberto was my father's best friend, Richard explained. They worked together for years. When Lewis joined Mercedes and mentioned your name, I wondered if there was a connection. I did some research and confirmed it. Your father helped Lewis when he needed it most. Tears filled Miguel's eyes. His father had died when Miguel was 15, but he remembered him working long hours at various racing circuits around Europe. "Does Lewis know?" Miguel asked. Richard shook his head. "Not yet. I only confirmed it last week. That's why I created the foundation, to repay the debt our sport owes to your family." As Miguel processed this revelation, Sophia's door opened. Dr. Chen stepped out, smiling. "Sophia's ready for her treatment," she announced. "She's asking for her dad." Miguel stood, his mind spinning with Richard's story. As he turned to go back to his daughter, Richard spoke once more. "Lewis always says that karma is real in this world. Perhaps he's right." 2 months later, Lewis stood in the Abu Dhabi paddock on a warm December evening. It was the final race of the season, and against all odds, he still had a chance at the championship. After missing Singapore, everyone had written him off. But 3 consecutive victories in the United States, Mexico, and Brazil had closed the gap to just 8 points. Whoever finished ahead today, Lewis or Max, would be world champion. Lewis adjusted his racing suit as he prepared for the pre-race parade. He'd been more focused this weekend than anyone had ever seen him. His qualifying lap yesterday had been described by commentators as otherworldly, putting him on pole position by 0.3 of a second over Max. "You seem different today," Toto observed, approaching Lewis in the garage. "Calm, but intensely focused." Lewis nodded. "I have something special to race for." His phone buzzed with a message. It was from Miguel. "We're here. Sophia can't wait. To see you race." Lewis smiled. After 2 months of treatment in Boston, Sophia had been cleared to travel. Her response to the therapy had been remarkable. Dr. Chen called it one of the best outcomes they'd seen. While Sophia wasn't completely out of danger, her prognosis had improved dramatically. When Richard Wilson had finally told Lewis about the connection between their families, how Miguel's father had helped a young Lewis when he needed it most, Lewis had been stunned. The coincidence seemed too perfect to be real. Yet somehow, through all the twists of fate, Lewis had found himself helping the son of the man who had once helped him. "Lewis!" a small voice called from the entrance to the garage. Lewis turned to see Sophia standing there, wearing a miniature version of his racing suit, complete with his number 44. Her hair was growing back, short curls framing her smiling face. Miguel and Maria stood behind her, looking proudly at their daughter. Lewis crouched down to hug her. "You made it! How was your flight?" "Amazing!" Sophia exclaimed. "Your plane has so many buttons. The pilot let me sit in the cockpit when we landed." Lewis had sent his private jet to Boston to bring the family to Abu Dhabi for the final race. It was Sophia's first Formula One race in person, a promise fulfilled. "Are you ready to win today?" Sophia asked seriously. "With you here?" "Absolutely," Lewis replied, giving her a high five. The Mercedes team had prepared a special area for Sophia and her parents to watch the race, comfortable and protected from the desert heat. As Lewis walked Sophia there, he noticed other drivers, smiling and waving at her. Over the past months, Sophia had become something of a mascot for the entire grid. Even Max Verstappen stopped by to give her a Red Bull cap, which she politely accepted while wearing her Mercedes hat. "Sorry, Max," Sophia said with a cheeky grin. "I have to support Lewis today." Max laughed. "I understand. But next season, maybe you can cheer for me sometimes?" "Only if Lewis isn't racing," Sophia replied, making everyone laugh. As the time for the race approached, Lewis knelt beside Sophia one last time. "Remember our deal," he said quietly. "I race hard, and you keep getting stronger." Sophia nodded solemnly. Deal. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix was everything a championship decider should be. Lewis made a perfect start from pole, but Max stayed close, behind. The two rivals pulled away from the rest of the field, putting on a masterclass of racing skill. Lap after lap, they pushed each other to the limit. Their pit stops were perfectly executed, keeping them nose to tail. With 10 laps remaining, they were separated by less than a second. "Lewis, we need everything now," Bono said over the radio. "Max is pushing hard." In the special viewing area, Sophia watched intently, clutching her father's hand. Miguel and Maria had never seen their daughter so excited and focused. With 5 laps to go, dark clouds appeared unexpectedly. A desert shower, rare but not unheard of in Abu Dhabi, began to fall on parts of the track. "Rain at turn 9, Lewis reported. Getting heavier. The teams faced a critical decision: pit for wet tires and lose position, or stay out and risk sliding off the increasingly slippery track. "What do you think?" Bono asked. Lewis thought of Sophia watching. He thought of all the challenges they had both faced this year. Sometimes you had to trust your instincts and take risks. "I'm staying out," Lewis decided. "The rain won't last." Max made the same choice, and the two continued their battle on slick tires in increasingly treacherous conditions. Cars behind them began pitting for wet tires, but the leaders gambled on their skill to see them through. As they started the final lap, Lewis held a slender lead of 0.4 of a second. The rain was at its heaviest now, making every corner a test of nerve and skill. In the Mercedes garage, Toto Wolff could barely watch. In the viewing area, Sophia stood up, her eyes glued to the screens. "Come on, Lewis," she whispered. Lewis approached. The trickiest section of the track, a series of corners now glistening with rainwater. He felt the car slide slightly, but kept it under control with microscopic adjustments of the steering wheel. Behind him, Max sensed an opportunity. As they exited the corner, the Red Bull lunged to the inside for an overtaking attempt. For a heart-stopping moment, the two cars ran side by side, inches apart, both on the edge of control in the rain. Lewis gave Max just enough space, respecting his rival while refusing to yield the position. As they approached the final corner, Lewis found extra grip on the outside line, allowing him to pull ahead just enough. He crossed the finish line 0.2 of a second ahead of Max. One of the closest finishes in Formula One history. "Get in there, Lewis!" Bono screamed over the radio. "You are the world champion!" Lewis pumped his fist in the air as he took the E2E2 checkered flag. His 8th World Championship, a new record in the sport. After everything this season had thrown at him, after missing a race to support Sophia, he had somehow still done it. In the viewing area, Sophia was jumping up and down, her parents hugging her with tears in their eyes. The Mercedes team erupted in celebration. Angela Cullen was sobbing with joy. As Lewis completed his victory lap, he guided his car to a stop directly in front of Sophia's viewing area. He climbed onto the top of his Mercedes, removed his helmet, and pointed directly at Sophia with both hands before blowing a kiss to her. The cameras caught the moment, and the world watched as Lewis Hamilton dedicated his greatest victory not to himself, but to a small girl who had fought an even tougher battle than he had. Later, after the podium, ceremony and media commitments, Lewis finally had a moment alone with Sophia and her family. "You did it!" Sophia exclaimed, hugging him tightly. "We did it," Lewis corrected her. Team Sophia Lewis. Miguel watched with tears in his eyes. "Lewis, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us." Lewis shook his head. "I should be thanking you, or rather, thanking your father. You know about that now, Miguel said softly. Yes. Louis smiled. Richard told me everything. How your father, Roberto, fixed my cart when we couldn't afford the repairs. That one race led to me being noticed by McLaren, which led to Formula One, which led to Mercedes. He paused. If your father hadn't helped me that day, I might not be standing here now. He would have been so proud to see this, Miguel said, his voice breaking slightly. The amazing thing, Louis continued, is that I didn't know the connection when I first offered to help Sophia. I just felt I needed to do it. Karma, Maria said, smiling. Louis nodded. Exactly. What goes around comes around, sometimes in ways we never expect. Sophia, who had been listening to this conversation, tugged on Louis's sleeve. Does this mean I helped you win too? Louis crouched down to her level. Absolutely. You reminded me why I race. Not just for trophies, but to inspire people. To show that anything is possible if you believe and work hard enough. Like beating cancer? Sophia asked. Exactly like that, Louis confirmed. And you're doing it. As they walked together toward the team celebration, Sophia, skipping between Louis and her parents, photographers captured the moment. The images would appear in newspapers around the world the next day. The champion and the little girl who had inspired his greatest victory. What began with tears in a supply closet had transformed into one of sport's most beautiful stories of compassion, connection, and triumph against the odds. Lewis Hamilton had won many races in his career, but as he watched Sophia laughing with his teammates, he knew that some victories weren't counted in trophies or points. Some victories changed lives, and those were the ones that mattered most. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to hear in the comments below if you enjoyed this heartwarming tale about Formula One. Champion Lewis Hamilton and his special connection with Sophia, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this. We share new content every week featuring real people making extraordinary differences in the lives of others. These aren't just stories. They're reminders of the power of compassion and kindness in our world. Share this video with your friends and family to spread awareness about childhood cancer and to show how one small act of kindness can change lives forever. Remember, as Louis learned, the most important victories aren't counted in trophies, but in the lives we touch. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.